Welcome, this is Flying Raijin, and today we are going to be talking about the time Yuji fought a lawyer in the Culling games. The scene starts with Yuji entering the theater and seeing Higuruma fully clothed in a suit and tie inside a bathtub, and I bet the first thought that popped in Yuji's head was,
"This nigga is crazy."
Yuji attempts to negotiate with Higuruma to use his 100 points to add a rule to the Culling games to allow players to transfer points between each other to negate the need for killing in the Culling games. Higuruma refuses and Yuji decided to take his points by force, and Higuruma stands up from the bathtub ready to fight. While Yuji was trying to be cautious about this fight because Higuruma had killed at least 20 sorcerers, 4 words from Higuruma quickly changed the landscape of the battle: domain expansion, deadly sentencing. Yuji immediately tries to attack Higuruma before he can activate his technique because opening your domain and activating your technique are two separate processes, but is unable to as Higuruma's domain prohibits violence. This domain is similar to domain from the past that doesn't have a deadly short attack, but it forces the target to obey the rules of the course technique. And in this case, the rules of the domain are simple. Higuruma is a prosecutor, Yuji is a defendant, and Higuruma Shikigami Judgeman is the judge. Judgeman accuses Yuji of entering a pachinko parlor despite being underage and provides Higuruma with evidence to prosecute. The evidence he provided Higuruma isn't necessarily conclusive, so Yuji has to defend himself against a lawyer in the court of law. Yes, Yuji's first day in the Culling games involves him fighting Naruto with a rocket launcher, a dude with helicopter blades on his head, and debating a lawyer in a courtroom, all in the space of 10 to 15 minutes. Higuruma explains that Yuji has a single chance to make a statement, as Higuruma also has a single chance to offer a rebuttal before Judgeman delivers his verdict. Yuji is presented with 3 options: denial, confession, or silence. Yuji admits to entering the pachinko parlor saying he went to take a dump, but the evidence with Higuruma is a picture that shows Yuji at a cash exchange window. If Yuji had denied going to the parlor, he would have been exonerated, as going to the cash exchange window in itself isn't illegal. But Yuji admitted that he went into the pachinko parlor, and then the evidence provided that he went to the exchange parlor right after. This proves that he in fact went into the parlor with the intent of playing the games. Judgment finds Yuji guilty and his punishment is confiscation as the domain is dispelled. Higuruma immediately goes on the offensive as he starts attacking Yuji with his gavel that can disappear and reappear in his hand, while also being able to change the size to increase his attacking power. Then Yuji realizes what his punishment is. His cost energy had been confiscated. Ideally, it's his cost technique that would have been confiscated, but since Yuji had no cost technique, his cost energy was confiscated instead. This meant that Yuji had to fight a grade 1 level sorcerer with incredible talent for Jujutsu without his cost energy. Despite holding his own against Higuruma, who complemented Yuji's strength by calling him an unbreakable door, Yuji realized that if things continued this way, he would eventually lose to Higuruma, who had changed his gavel to the size of a generator. But Yuji was still able to withstand the force it packed. Yuji remembers that he didn't admit his guilt, so he can request a retrial, and as soon as he requests a retrial, Higuruma's domain automatically opened again. This time in the domain, Judgment accuses Yuji of mass murder in Shibuya during the Shibuya incident, and Yuji immediately admits to doing so in one of the most tragic panels in all of Jujutsu Kaisen. Judgment follows suit as he finds Yuji guilty, and along with the punishment of confiscation, Yuji receives the heaviest sentence that Judgment can enforce: the death penalty. And so Higuruma is granted the executioner sword that can kill anything he slashes, with no exception. The second half of the fight begins with Yuji trying to avoid the sword while Higuruma is punching while Yuji admitted to a crime he didn't commit. Higuruma realized from the evidence provided by Judgment that the mass murder was committed by Sukuna, and so Yuji was innocent. Yuji's guilt reminded Higuruma of why he wanted to be a lawyer in the first place instead of being a judge: to protect the people that are weak and unable to protect themselves against a system that can be blind. Higuruma mentioned that Lady Justice is blind, and the same is true with Judgment, who granted Yuji a guilty verdict despite knowing that Yuji didn't do it. But Higuruma chose to see the nuance in the situation by keeping his eyes open, and Higuruma dispels his cost technique and stops fighting with Yuji. Higuruma and Yuji proceeded to have a heart-to-heart about how awful the feeling of killing someone is, and Higuruma accepts Yuji's proposal and adds a new rule to the Culling games. Rule number 10: players can transfer points to players of their choosing. Higuruma then transfers 1 point to Yuji so he won't have to kill again for 19 days and says goodbyes to Yuji as he leaves to ponder his action while also planning to turn himself in for killing the prosecutor and judge when he awakens his course technique. And so, Yuji vs Higuruma, the most emotional fight in Jujutsu Kaisen ends. Please like and subscribe.